Hi, my name is Sruti. I'm an author and spiritual teacher. I discuss my experience with chronic pain and also how this relates to feminist society. Tonight, I'm having a flare. I thought it was kind of important to do a video while I'm having a flare. As you can see on my face, it's very red on both sides and my ear. I had an allergic reaction to an ear piercing, which I discussed in my previous video, and it affected the nerves in my ear and face. It's also inflammatory and relates to blood flow. It's called erythromelalgia. Usually it's in the hands and feet, but in rare cases can be in the face and the ear. And like I said, this was triggered by an allergic reaction to an ear piercing in this ear, which you can see is quite red. The symptoms are not just redness and puffiness of the face. You can see my eye is getting kind of red and puffy and starting to close. It's also extreme heat and pain, like your face is on a frying pan and it's just burning. So you can see I'm wearing a lot of things to adapt to that. I'm wearing a neck fan that's blowing air up onto my face at all times. I'm wearing a hat to protect from the sun. The nerves are triggered by sunlight, all kinds of light, all kinds of heat. Touch, it's very difficult to touch. For the past 6 years, I've only been able to lay on the left side of my face. It is triggered by laying down. So when I lay down, I always have a fan blowing on me at night. Right now, I have several fans blowing on me in the background. I always have a fan on me. For the first year of this illness, I held ice packs to my face constantly, and still the flares would just continue. So luckily for most of the day, I don't have this flare anymore. I'm on 20 plus medications, and it's taken 6 years and traveling across the country to get to this point. But at night, sometimes it gets bad right before bed, and so that's the kind of longer description of what's going on. How this relates to feminism. First of all, I have had these symptoms for a while, allergic reactions that lead to inflammatory, autoimmune, nerve-related illnesses. The one that was most severe started when I was 20. I had an allergic reaction to Bactrim, and it triggered interstitial cystitis. The doctors will try and tell you that maybe these allergic reactions aren't related. That is a symptom of simply not taking me seriously, which is common for women in society to have their symptoms be brushed off as not that serious or not so bad or not so painful, just simply because you're female, or actually it gets worse the more attractive you are, to be honest. But when I had a puffy face, it was worse also, so you can't really say that. Just being a woman is enough to have your symptoms not be serious. Unfortunately, I've had doctors walk out of the room on me. Unfortunately, they were mostly male doctors. Simply walk out in the middle of a sentence, not come back, not prescribe medication. I've had doctors rush me out of the room, telling me that wrong diagnosis, which led to weeks and weeks of delays on getting correct medication, just prolonging the suffering. So finally, I saw a bunch of female doctors and a few very, very good male doctors who prescribed the right medication, took my symptoms seriously. And not only has it helped with this, the interstitial cystitis, which has been the worst of all of the problems, has finally seen about 80% relief because of the medications I'm on. So the medication that helped me the most is called Rinvoq. It is an anti-inflammatory medication mostly used for arthritis and ulcerative colitis. It's very hard to get that medication. It's extremely expensive. It's not just the expense. Doctors will not prescribe it to you unless you either have arthritis or ulcerative colitis. And recently, thankfully, they approved it for eczema, which is what I'm on it for. And that is the reason I have any help at all. And because the female doctors took me seriously. The only reason I was taken seriously, at all by anyone was because my face got puffy. Before my face was puffy, when I told people I was in pain from interstitial cystitis, they just brushed it off. No one prescribed me medication. No one put me on prednisone. No one did anything, really. They just said sorry. So, of all of the things I've suffered, this being obviously extraordinarily painful, the interstitial cystitis is still the worst. Because of being put on prednisone, I had cataracts in my eyes for which I needed surgery. I had a suppressed immune system and had a severe case of shingles I was almost hospitalized for. My bones have been weakened. I have 2 fractures in each hip. 6 bones are broken in my left foot, 7 in my right. And my actual toe is curved to the right and to the left on each foot, so it's very difficult to walk. In a few weeks, I'm going to have a fairly serious surgery to correct that, in which they're going to break my heel and do a whole bunch of crazy things that, frankly, I'm terrified of. So, of all of this other suffering, the interstitial cystitis was still the worst. It does involve female body parts that I've discussed in other videos that a lot of male doctors just didn't want to hear about and didn't take seriously. So I do view this whole incident with my face as the universe's way of getting me help for a problem that a lot of male doctors would not help with and a lot of female doctors couldn't help with because they simply could not authorize the drugs. So the good news is I'm getting the help I need. The bad news is it's not from society. And that's partly why I'm making these videos. If you're female and you think you have equal rights as men, try having an allergic reaction to a drug or a ear piercing and see what happens to you. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to bring light to something the society doesn't want to see. And what it doesn't want to see is that it still treats women like objects. And in my previous video that I posted just yesterday, the day before, I discussed how people who can't deal with pain then blame it on others, creating scapegoats and making that object of blame into exactly what it sounds like, into an object. And this first and foremost happens with women. It's happened since Adam and Eve. And women, the oppression of women in this way forms what we call rape culture. By making women into objects of blame, we objectify women. We make them the objects of violence, sexual violence, and that is, if you ask any woman, the greatest fear they have on this planet. If that fear was eliminated, we would see widespread equality, and women would get the drugs they need and would be taken seriously in the doctor's office and anywhere else in society. And my simple request to just be treated as a human being would come true. Not just a human being, but if any self-respecting man looks into the eyes of a woman and doesn't see his own self, then we are talking about someone who is completely unawakened and is exhibiting the dark side of masculinity. You will see the dark side of masculinity probably in the comment section. And like I said, it's things like, it's not that serious, or this isn't the biggest problem we face in society, and this is what feminists call the last cause of humanity. Feminism is the last cause because it's the cause that everyone brushes aside. It's the cause that everyone says is unimportant. It's the cause that everyone dismisses, and it's the lowest on the rung of priority, precisely because it's the most powerful and the last. If we really uncover the last missing pieces of sexism in society, we can then enter into a true society which is beyond both masculine and feminine, where we don't have to talk about it in these black and white terms, and we've already looked into the parts of society that haven't changed yet, that are still stuck in darkness and still creating situations like mine, in which I could have been helped 20 years earlier. If I had been put on a medication like this 20 years ago, 20 years of my life would not have been wasted in horrible pain. Now, I understand that life is never wasted. There's always a reason for things, and I believe that making these videos is the reason, so that other women don't have to go through what I went through. And that is part of why I'm speaking out. The greatest power we have is our voice. If there's nothing else we can do, we can say what needs to be said. And what needs to be said is this: we need to find a different way of interacting with pain in society. We can look into all the ways we become high vibrational, raise our frequency, become better people, but if we don't address our shadow side, if we don't look into the times where there's pain and fear and death, we will never transcend it. That is why I continue to recommend reading my book, which is in the comment section below, watching my other videos, and really taking another look at this. Because if we can transform how we interact with pain, we don't have to suffer as much pain. Right now, we are facing a decision in this election between a lot more pain or the resolution of pain. And you can guess that making the decision to vote for Trump is 4 more years of horrible pain that we do not need. I'm making these videos to try and cut that short. We do not need to go down that path. We do not need to do it. We have the choice in front of us for a brighter, better future. One in which we look at each other and see each other in each other's eyes. One in which we treat each other with kindness and create circular societies instead of hierarchical societies that are based on objects. We don't need to be objects anymore. We don't need to blame anymore, and we don't need to be afraid of pain. Just let pain erode and take away all the false layers of who you are. You won't be harmed. You'll only find yourself behind all of those false layers. You'll come back to your center and realize that we don't need the same level of pain we once did in the past. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.